John, first of all, what are you learning?
Well, we began to learn, and this is based on reporting by Ryan Young down at the scene and Mark Morales here in New York, that this gun, an AR-15 platform, was something that the father, who was just charged, Colin, gave to his son as a Christmas gift in December of 2023. Now, that has extraordinary significance on a number of levels. Number one, it is just several months after we learned that the Jackson County Sheriff went to the house, interviewed the father and the son about the FBI reports that he had made an online threat on a Discord.
Right, the son allegedly had a Discord account in which he made online threats.
To do a school shooting.
The local authorities, contacted by the FBI, interviewed both the son and the father.
That's right.
Who denied any such threats.
Right. Colin said, that wasn't me on the computer. The son said, I would have never done that. But it did come from an account that the provider said, belonged at that location and to those people.
Discord, by the way, said they removed that account in May of 2023.
Exactly. But that posting, showed rifles.
And talked about shooting up the school the following day.
In pictures. So you really have to kind of, when you look at a case like this, which is going to be about negligence and indifference to the probability of what could happen, factor that in, that occurred before he gave them this gun as a gift. The other thing we could say in context is, at the time he gave it to him, they were, Colin and his wife were in the middle of a very contentious divorce and child custody case with allegations and counter-allegations and arrests and
the wife had accused, this alleged shooter's mother had accused the alleged shooter's father, her husband, of abuse, verbal, and a hostile environment in the home.
And then in the course of that, she was also arrested in a car where she was charged with possession of methamphetamine and other drugs. So what you're seeing is an environment that might not be the ideal environment for a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old to possess basically an assault weapon. Now, the father's argument was he doesn't have unfettered access to it, but if you listen closely to the interview with the sheriff at the time in Jackson County, they talk about, well, he has access to it, but not when it's loaded. And, when we use it together. I just took him on his hunting trip and so on. But it clearly is a factor here that he did have access to it and ammunition, because we know what allegedly happened.
There's reporting also that as part of an eviction proceeding that had occurred, that authorities had actually removed guns from the home
and then returned
from the father, and then ultimately returned them. And again, this interview with police took place in May. It was now, according to Ryan Young and others reporting, in December around Christmas that the father, after having been interviewed by police, went and got an AR-15 style weapon for his son. Jeff, I mean, this is rare, although not unheard of.
Second time in American history, apparently, that a parent has been charged in connection with a mass shooting by a minor. I think people may remember in Michigan, just in April, the Crumbly family, it was again a shooting where a minor shot and killed 4 people. And in an unprecedented case at that point, the parents, Jennifer and James Crumbly, were charged with involuntary manslaughter, the same initial counts as in this case. The facts of that case involved, was there recklessness, was there foreseeability? There was an issue in that case of not getting mental health assistance to the boy, which the school had recommended. Obviously, John's talking about the evidence we know. The key issue in the case against the father here will be recklessness, foreseeability, how he handled the gun in relation to his son. What's different from the Michigan case, and certainly jumped out to me when I heard the charges here in Georgia, is that it's not just involuntary manslaughter, which suggests just recklessness. The father in this case is also charged with second-degree murder, which suggests a much higher level of intentionality, which prosecutors will have to prove.
Would that imply knowledge of a possible attack?
It could, but even knowledge, I think it would be hard to make it rise to second-degree murder. Second-degree murder, in almost every case that I'm aware of, involves, knowing an intentional murder, and that. Obviously we're just getting the evidence in this case, but that's a much higher road, a much more difficult charge to prove than involuntary manslaughter, which is really just about recklessness, carelessness, which certainly, based on the facts that John's are laying out, that seems like a very makeable case against his father. But second-degree murder, very different.
Isabel, I mean, you've been reporting now on this all day. This news just broke just minutes before we went on air. What are you hearing about reaction to it? What have you been hearing throughout the day?
Yeah, and I spoke to Sheriff Judd Smith earlier today, and he had told me that any option was possibly on the table, including charging Colt Gray's father in connection to this deadly shooting. One of the big questions I had after that interview with the sheriff is just how much Colt Gray is talking. The sheriff told me that he was read his Miranda rights and that he just kept talking and talking, even saying, "I did it." The sheriff told me that Colt Gray did not deny carrying out that shooting. And of course, we have that stunning reporting from Mark Morales and Ryan Young that the Jackson County Sheriff's Office spoke to the father. CNN obtained that audio of that investigation. The father saying, "No, my son did not have unsupervised access to these guns. Yes, we like to hunt." The son denying, "No, I would never write something like this, not even joke about it." But then we have here around Christmas time, around the holidays, 6-7 months later, the father buying him, according to our law enforcement sources, buying him the same gun that was used to carry out this heinous attack. So the question becomes,
let me just, that audio that you mentioned, we have that from that police interview. I just want to play that.
Do you have weapons in the house?
I do.
Are they accessible to him?
They are. I mean, there's nothing loaded, but they are down.
Okay.
We do a lot of shooting. We do a lot of deer hunting. He shot his first deer this year.
Yeah. Okay.
So like, I'm pretty much in shock, to be honest with you.
Well,
I'm a little pissed off, to be even really honest with you. If that is what was said.
So that
Yeah, so the
sorry,
question-
go ahead.
Yeah, no, so sorry, Anderson. The question becomes, how does a 14-year-old get access to these guns to carry out this attack? Colin Gray was the adult in the household. You have deputies knocking on your door, talking with you about these very serious accusations, multiple tips saying that your son may be involved with sending out these threats. We have reporting, too, about that incident report from 2023, that Discord account that John Miller was mentioning that the FBI linked to Colt Gray, where he referenced whoever wrote the post referenced plans for a future mass shooting, writing, "I'm committing a mass shooting and I'm waiting a good 2 to 3 years. I'm ready." Posting images of the gun, expressing desires to target an elementary school, expressing frustrations with the acceptance of transgender people. So how is it that these accusations, these threats are brought to your attention, and then later on you end up purchasing a gun for your son? So the question becomes, what was the inaction that was taken in terms of locking away guns, or the action taken by this father in terms of buying him a gun that could have possibly led to this shooting? They're going to have to prove that in court.
Dave Cullen, your book Columbine really opened my eyes to so much about mass shootings in America. It's the definitive study of what happened at Columbine, which, we hear that this alleged killer, this young man, looked at other school shootings. And that is a common thing we hear in all of these school shootings, that oftentimes they go online, they look up, and they even look back to Columbine in a sort of idealizing way, looking at the two killers at Columbine. I'm wondering what first of all, your reaction is now to the arrest of the father.
Well, a couple things. I'll come back to the arrest. Yeah, I researched this for a 25th anniversary we did, and for a new preface. And I believe there are 82 documented cases that we know of that the shooters directly said in the writings or interviews that they were inspired by Columbine or used it as a model. But much more than that, God, I think 5 or 6 of the shooters, it went 5 generations deep. So they studied the Umpqua County shooting, whose killers studied, I think, Northern Illinois, who studied Virginia Tech and Columbine. Virginia Tech studied Columbine. There's this, we have it in the book. There's this incredible web, and there's actually an Atlantic piece you could link to. This incredible web where they're all roads are leading back to Columbine, and they're all studying these kids. And they've learned because the people. Well, first of all, they've learned that bombs usually don't work. So they've stopped that and just gone ahead for shooting and maximizing that.